Shall we say hello or remain incognito? We are always neato.
about Rick and Morty theories can get really daunting. Like, remember the episode with the brain parasites that you could only identify if you think of any bad memories of them? Well, I don't have any bad memories of Rick and Morty, so does that mean the show is a parasite? Oh boy, it's getting weird. Welcome to Film Theory, the squanchiest show in all of Squanch.
Your language has the word squanch in it a lot.
So with the new season of Rick and Morty starting July 30th, I've been digging through everything I can find about the series, and my mind is going to some really weird places. Like, you know how Rick created a microverse where the inhabitants had to perform the same repetitive task over and over again to generate the electricity that Rick's spaceship runs on? Well, what if our world was created simply to power another, more intelligent civilization? I mean, you laugh, but consider this. In the show, they had to step on Google boxes. In real life, what repetitive task came out of nowhere and now has everyone mesmerized? Fidget spinners. But that's crazy, right? It's not like we have any evidence that fidget spinners exist in Rick and Morty's universe, let alone that they were invented by Rick, except, I mean, what's that on the jacket of literally every Rick on the Council of Ricks? But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And fade back up because the episode isn't over yet. Putting aside conspiracy theories about whether our fidget spinner crazed society is just a teeny-verse powering a mini-verse created by Rick, today I want to look ahead to the future of Rick and Morty to theorize about one of the show's most fascinating and threatening characters, Eye Patch Morty, otherwise known as Evil Morty. If you need a refresher course, Evil Morty's only appearance is in the Season 1 episode Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, wherein he and an evil Rick assassinate a number of other Ricks across multiple dimensions and then try to frame the show's main Rick, Rick C-137, for the crime. Oh yeah, by the way, fair warning, don't. And I repeat, do not play a drinking game where every time I say either Rick or Morty during this episode you take a drink. I guarantee you'll be dead by minute 5. Anyway, by the end of the episode, evil Rick is killed and evil Morty sneaks away uncaptured, blending into a sea of freed Mortys. But here's where it really gets interesting. It's revealed at the end of the episode that evil Rick was just a robot, and that it was evil Morty who was controlling him via a control in his eye patch the whole time. Clearly that is a huge cliffhanger to end on, and based on what the creators are saying, evil Morty probably won't be hiding out for very much longer. They've definitely been a little cagey, but just listen to how the creators of the series talk about this character.
We probably talked about evil Morty in the writer's room more than we actually spent working on episodes that aired. When we want to come back to something really cool like Evil Morty, I want to make sure I know what's his motivation, what's his backstory, what's going on, and it has to be inspired.
So it's not a question of if Evil Morty comes back, it's when. As for his motivations, well, what if I told you that Evil Morty was Rick's previous Morty? You heard that right. The Rickest of all Ricks, Szechuan-loving Rick Sanchez, main title character Rick. That Morty with an eye patch is his original Morty. And that evil Morty's revenge on Rick is likely to be a major factor in upcoming episodes. Oh boy, here I go theorizing again. Just call me Crumbopulous Matt Pass. Now, before you swiftiest Rick and Morty fans get all bent out of shape and fold yourselves in half 12 times, I will say that I'm not the first person to think that evil Morty used to be paired up with Rick C-137, but while I've seen the theory, I haven't really seen much evidence for it. That makes it much more of a hypothesis than a theory, really. By the same token, at this point, enough has been said on the internet about Rick and Morty that I can't be sure that any theory about the show hasn't been thought up before. I mean, there are some people online who believe that Morty's grandmother is Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus because Summer has red hair, and Miss Frizzle also has red hair and likes science. And heck, even Arnold got the unique experience of shoving magic school buses way up his butt. Anyway, TLDR, even if you think you've heard a theory like this before, you'll want to stick around because this is the theoriest of theories when it comes to tracking the true story behind Evil Morty. And that's the way the news goes. Now, you might say off the bat that there's no way Evil Morty could be Rick C-137's Morty because our Rick already has himself a Morty. And you're right, except for one thing. We can prove that our current Morty in the show isn't Rick's original. In Close Rick Counters, when evil Rick is going through Rick C-137's memories, we get a flashback to Rick picking up Morty as a baby, which causes him to well up with tears. Not only is it a really touching moment, it's also crucial for piecing together Rick's backstory. Based on Jerry crashing into Morty's room and something Ricked this way comes.
And also, knock next time, you know? I mean, I'm sitting in here, I'm 14. I got a computer in here, you know?
We know Morty is 14 years old. And based on official descriptions of the series on places like Google Play and Facebook, we see that Rick has been, quote, missing for nearly 20 years before arriving at his daughter's doorstep looking to move in, end quote. This fact is also confirmed in the show when Beth says that she,
I used to have to draw him into family photos with a crayon.
thus, the current Morty cannot be Rick's original Morty. Rick's been gone for over 20 years, but Morty's only 14, meaning that Rick wouldn't have been around when Morty was a baby. Now, obviously, none of that math proves that evil Morty is the Morty that we see in that memory, but there are some other clues sprinkled throughout the episode that strongly suggest a connection. Let's listen to a bit of what evil Rick has to say about Rick's relationship with Morty.
We both know that if there's any truth in the universe, it's that Ricks don't care about Mortys.
Now, while that might initially seem irrelevant, remember that everything evil Rick says in the episode is coming from evil Morty, since Rick is just a robot controlled by the eye patch. With that new understanding, it's obvious that these are words coming from a Morty who is fed up with Rick, one who resents Rick for the mistreatment he's undergone. Resentment that probably comes from being experimented on, tortured, maybe even abandoned. And let's break those down one at a time. Evil Morty is obviously cybernetically enhanced, since we see at the end of the episode that his eye patch connects to some wires behind his eye. And we have proof that Rick C-137 isn't shy about mechanizing his Mortys. In the Season 2 episode, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, Rick lets us onto a little secret about an enhancement that he gave to Mortys.
A long time ago, I implanted you with a subdermal chip that could call upon dormant nanobots in your bloodstream to restructure your anatomy and turn you into a car. Oh my god!
And at the end of the episode, we get proof that he's not bluffing. We also know that evil Morty is aware of how Ricks camouflage their brainwaves by hanging out with Morty.
See, when a Rick is with a Morty, the genius waves get canceled out by the, Morty waves.
How can we be sure that evil Morty knows this? Because evil Morty sets up a matrix of kidnapped and tortured Mortys for his fake Rick, all to make it seem like the robot Rick under his control was a true Rick committing these crimes. And of course, Rick C-137 was surprisingly familiar with this concept.
You get a whole matrix of Mortys and put them in agonizing pain. That creates a pattern that can hide even from other Ricks. I fiddled with the concept like this once. On paper, Morty, on paper.
He concludes with the oddly specific detail that,
I mean, you could accomplish the same result with like 5 Mortys and a jumper cable. Which I also wouldn't do.
sure you wouldn't, Rick. So you say, but take another look at the visuals we get of Rick C-137's memories, and we get ourselves a remarkably quick peek at a Morty with wires hooked up to his hand, getting delivered an electric shock. We know that he didn't perform this experiment on our Morty certainly would have remembered it, meaning that the most likely test subject of that experiment is Rick's first Morty, evil Morty. After all, how would he have known that putting Mortys in pain would camouflage his brainwaves if he hadn't heard it from a Rick? The cherry on top of all of this is that it sounds an awful lot like Rick has had experience with an overconfident, smart Morty before, who then went on to betray him. At the end of the episode, when Morty's looking for some gratitude from Rick for saving his life, Rick is fast to shut him down by saying,
"A cocky Morty can lead to some big problems. Can be a real bad thing for everybody."
then deflecting any further commentary by telling Morty he'd explain it to him when he's older. Again, an oddly specific detail for Rick to just toss out there, which makes it seem like he's hinting at the fate of his first Morty. Put all of these things together and what do we have? A Rick who had a Morty on which he did experiments, including cybernetic enhancements and brainwave masking tests. And an evil Morty with no Rick of his own who has cybernetic enhancements, knowledge of the Rick brainwave cloaking, and an intense hatred for all of Rick kind. Seems like a match made in heaven.
There is no God Summer. You gotta rip that band-aid off now. You'll thank me later.
But here's the kicker. In Close Rick Counters, Rick C-137's portal gun shows that he's been to all the dimensions where evil Morty has killed a Rick. He claims he was being framed, and that his portal gun was tampered with. Thinking about Rick and Morty theories can get really daunting. Like, remember the episode with the brain parasites that you could only identify if you couldn't think of any? Thinking about Rick and Morty theories can get really daunting. Like, remember the episode with the brain parasites that you could only identify if you couldn't think of any bad memories of them? Well, I don't have any bad memories of Rick and Morty, so does that mean the show is a parasite? Oh boy, it's getting weird.
Dante, what are you looking at? Give me the ball.
Let's go, Dante.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What I use in a battle for the mind. Hit it hard like it's supposed. Blowing up blows to the...
Mr. Peters. Mr. Portman. Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Mr. Peters. Mr. Portman.
The Senate had a procedural vote in regard to the replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act, and unfortunately, the procedural vote did pass with Mike Pence breaking the 50-50 tie. The two Republican lawmakers who voted against this procedural vote, of course, were the two women who have been holding this up, Lisa Murkowski and also Susan Collins. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that Senator John McCain decided to go back to Washington in order to take part in this vote, and he did vote in favor of it. Now, keep in mind that this is strictly a procedural vote, meaning that the Senate has agreed or has voted in favor of allowing for more debate moving forward in regard to a replacement plan for the Affordable Care Act. Now,
can I jump in on McCain immediately?
Okay.
Okay.
We have videos of McCain, giving a passionate speech as well, so we'll get to that later.
Passionate in all the wrong ways. So, all right, you know what? I'll start with Murkowski and Collins. Bless their hearts, very rarely will a Republican senator or any Republican politician actually vote in a moderate way. They'll love to claim the title of moderate, but they never act moderate, right? But here's a rare case and an important case where they actually were moderate.
Right.
They said, look, we're not going to strip away health care from 22 million Americans. We don't vote yes on procedure. We don't vote yes on the bill. And by the way, we don't even know what's in the bill. This is the insanity of this. McConnell, the leader for the Republicans in the Senate, said, yeah, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to put up. I want you to vote yes on proceeding to a debate. Murkowski said, well, what the hell are we debating? I don't know what I'm voting yes on. And he's like, that's right, I'm not going to tell you, right? So that's great context for what you're about to see from McCain, because it sounds wonderful, but it's actually, in my opinion, horrible. So Murkowski and Collins, Republican senators, deserve credit for doing the right thing in protecting your health care. And also the right thing in terms of the Senate, because none of the people who voted yes have any idea what they're voting on. They have literally not seen the bill that is going to be proposed. All those years of the Republicans saying, they didn't even read the bill. They didn't even, in this case, there is no bill. McConnell said, I'm not going to tell you which bill I'm going to put up and what's in it. I want you to vote yes anyway on going forward on that debate.
Right.
As usual, overwhelming majority of the Republicans grotesque and obvious and brazen hypocrites, which I hear all the time on TV. Oh, right. They never say that. They call it 50-50 unless it's Trump.
Right. So, again, just to clarify and emphasize, McConnell drafted this legislation behind closed doors. The senators do not know what that legislation entails. However, after this procedural vote, it essentially opens the doors to as much as 20 hours worth of debates where amendments will be proposed, and the outcome is unlikely to be exactly the same as what McConnell has drafted. So I just want to make that clear. Now, with that said, let's hear from John McCain. He did give a pretty passionate speech during this vote.
We Republicans have looked for a way to end it and replace it with something else without paying a terrible political price. We haven't found it yet, and I'm not sure we will. All we've managed to do is make more popular a policy that wasn't very popular when we started trying to get rid of it. I voted for the motion to proceed to allow debate to continue and amendments to be offered. I will not vote for this bill as it is today. It's a shell of a bill right now. We all know that. I have changes urged by my state's governor that will have to be included to earn my support for final passage of any bill. I know many of you will have to see the bill change substantially for you to support it. We've tried to do this by coming up with a proposal behind closed doors in consultation with the administration, then springing it on skeptical members, trying to convince them that it's better than nothing, that it's better than nothing, asking us to swallow our doubts and force it past a unified opposition. I don't think that's going to work in the end, and probably shouldn't.
All right, so there he is. He had some strong words for people in the media who have chimed in on this debate as well. We'll get to that clip in just a second.
Yeah, okay, that was total nonsense. He gave the speech to vote no, and then he voted yes. He said, we did this behind closed doors. We shouldn't do it behind closed doors. But I'm going to vote yes. We don't know what's in the bill. We should know what's in the bill. I'm going to vote yes. Well, then you should vote no. We didn't work with the other party, so I should vote no, but I'm going to vote yes. And we should follow regular order. Now, this vote was to make sure you don't follow regular order in the Senate. So I'm going to tell you all the reasons why I should vote no, so it sounds great, and knucklehead TV news actors will come out and go, oh, John McCain, oh my God, John McCain. He came on like a hero and told us why we should vote no and then voted yes. So not interested. Is he heroic for coming from brain cancer and speaking under these situations? Yes. For being able to come out of surgery and get to Washington, I guess, on an issue he cares about, although I guess he cares about it. Maybe he doesn't know what he's doing, because that speech was a no vote. And to turn around and to vote in this direction. Look, I'll give him one more piece of credit. Yes, it's great that you come out if you care about the issue. Again, it makes no sense because you seem to care against this. Anyway, the second part is that he did campaign on it. He did say that he was going to repeal Obamacare, and he's like, whether I know what's in it or not, and he said, I'm not promising to vote for the final piece of legislation, but I do want to go forward on murdering Obamacare. So that's my heroic act here in the Senate.
Not only did he campaign on that, he has been part of that effort from the very beginning. He has been against the Affordable Care Act from the very beginning. He's been outspoken against it. And so it doesn't surprise me that he voted the way that he did. But I want to hold for just a second, because while I agree that it's ridiculous that both the Senate and the House, Republicans in both the Senate and the House, continue to fight tooth and nail for something that the vast majority of Americans are actually in favor of. The vast majority of Americans actually do like the Affordable Care Act, especially when it's, presented to them as the Affordable Care Act and all the different components of it that they get to take advantage of. However, it's not as alarming as them voting on actual legislation. That's not what happened today. What they did was vote. It was a procedural vote, which indicates that they can move forward with debating this issue and creating amendments to whatever Mitch McConnell decided to draft up behind closed doors.
Let me just clarify one more layer to it, though. The reason that John McCain is speaking passionately against the thing he voted for is because he likes to do things in regular order of the Senate, which is true. He has been principled on that, except for his votes, which are the exact opposite of his principles. Anyway, normally what you would have is you would vote to go forward on a bill that you have seen.
That's right.
There is no bill. So we haven't seen it yet. It's not like they didn't get a chance to read it. It has not been proposed. So that is not regular order. So if John McCain stuck with his principles, he would have clearly voted no.
So the way that I see this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my perception. This is just a lot of political theater for me, right? Because it's a way...
And sorry I jumped in already, but because they could have killed it right here. If John McCain just doesn't show up or shows up and gives the same exact speech and then votes as his speech says, we're done with it. They can't even proceed to a vote to kill Obamacare.
No. I know. I understand that, right? But you're talking as if we have senators that are interested in serving the best interests of their constituents, which we know we don't, right? We have senators and lawmakers who do things for political gain. And so if you have some members of, some people who voted for them, their constituents, who think Obamacare is terrible, right? Without even really understanding how many components of Obamacare have actually helped them out. If they voted for these politicians with the thought that they were going to help get rid of Obamacare, well, isn't that what they're doing here? Isn't that what these senators are attempting to do? Appear like they're trying to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, when in reality, this is a procedural vote that doesn't really do much other than open the doors for more debate.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if that's what John McCain thinks he's doing and being cute, I voted on procedure and then he votes later against the bill. One, I'll take it if he votes against the bill. But two, it won't convince anybody anyway. You're going to eventually have the real vote. So I don't think it does that much good. This is just them going out there and saying, I promise to kill the Affordable Care Act, which gives you insurance, and I'll do it even if I don't know what's in I don't know if there's going to be a replacement at all. McConnell has not promised that it will be replaced in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what's in the replacement if one exists, but I promise you that I will destroy your health care. That's what I promised you in the campaign, and that's what I'm going to deliver on. So thank you, John McCain. It looks like you had good health care, though.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're a U.S. senator. You had great health care. That's why you could have that surgery and then come right back. Well, if other people want to have that health care, it looks like you're going to vote no. Wow, heroism.
Yeah, and that goes back to, this lack of empathy that our lawmakers have. Like, they'll take advantage of government programs that are awesome. He doesn't have to worry about, not having the resources available to treat his condition, but he has no problem possibly taking those types of benefits away from the American people. All right, so there was another portion of his speech that I thought was super interesting. He decided to attack the media, not in a Trump way, but in just a fascinating way regarding the divisiveness in the media and some of the voices that we hear from. So let's take a look at what McCain had to say about that.
Stop listening to the bombastic loudmouths on the radio and television and the internet. To hell with them. They don't want anything done for the public good. Our incapacity is their livelihood. Let's trust each other. Let's return to regular order. We've been spinning our wheels on too many important issues because we keep trying to find a way to win without help from across the aisle. That's an approach that's been employed by both sides, mandating legislation from the top down without any support from the other side, with all the parliamentary maneuvers that requires. We're getting nothing done, my friends. We're getting nothing done.
Okay, so wait, let me tackle this. So he says, ignore the bombastic loudmouths.
Talking about you.
Yeah, on the internet. Okay, I hear you, John. To hell with that. Little ironic, but we'll get past it. This is the guy that's famous for bomb Iran. That's what he said. This is the guy who's the biggest warmonger in the Senate. So if you're a little loud on TV, radio, or the internet, you have been uncivil to the elites. How dare you, you bombastic loudmouth. I dropped bombs all over the Middle East, killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, grandmothers, babies, aunts, uncles, children. All those people are dead in Iraq because of John McCain's vote. They're dead all over the Middle East because of John McCain's votes. Somebody was a little loud in how they complained about his votes. When he's singing, bomb, bomb, bomb Iran. Iran is a bigger country than Iraq. We'd have 10 times a bigger mess in Iran. But he doesn't mind that. Maybe millions die. But don't, whatever you do, be impolite to the honorable ladies and gentlemen of the elite Senate. Thank you very much for your advice, John McCain. I'm going to choose to ignore that. I think what you have done.
Fox News discussed Trump's gutting of Obamacare, and the host asked a very classy Fox News style question.
What these payments did, where they paid for the co-pays and deductibles for the most vulnerable of Americans, right? Those who couldn't afford it. What ends up happening here is because the law requires these insurers to pay this money is going to get paid. But in return, that money is going to be sort of deflected onto those of us who can afford to pay more for health insurance. So what you're going to do is middle-class families, small business owners, working class individuals who could barely afford to make payments in the exchange market are going to end up paying more, and that's the bad deal.
What's the motivation? If these are the poorest Americans who are getting their co-pays and things like that covered, what's the motivation for them to try to live a healthier lifestyle? I mean, if it doesn't cost them anything to go to the doctor, what's the motivation?
I give up. I give up on Fox News. I'm about to give up on the U.S. So stupid. What's the motivation? Yes, because, it's not like diseases and viruses and holla everybody.
They're just showing him get taken off the court right now in a stretcher.
Negative things.
Me and Corn are watching opening night for the NBA, and
yeah, I mean, what? Are you gonna pay the copay for this poor person? But they got into a car accident. They were fucking sideswiped by somebody going 60, and their fucking hip is broken, and they're bleeding out internally. What, are you gonna fucking pay the copay for that guy? What's the incentive for him not to get sideswiped again going that speed? What, you're gonna pay for this guy? He's got fucking colon cancer. What are you gonna do? You gonna do his copay? I mean, what's the incentive for him not to get colon cancer again? This is about punishing the poor. That's what this is. Listen, they view, on Fox News and the far right in general, they view poverty as some sort of moral failing on your part. In other words, in their mind, it's not possible to be working poor. That doesn't exist. Even though millions and millions and millions of Americans are working poor, even though 50% of the country makes $30,000 a year or less, they don't look at you and say, hey, that's the result of a rigged economic system. That's the result of us not living in a meritocracy. It's not that the harder you work, the further you go. Of course not. That's the result of multiple complex factors, but it's definitely the result of not living in a meritocracy. The productivity of the American worker has skyrocketed while wages have stagnated. But they look at you, if you're in that bottom 50%, and they go, what incentive do you have? And what, you want health care? Is that what you want? You want to get your health care paid for without going bankrupt? Is that what you want? Mike over at the Humanist Report mentioned something that caught my eye. According to Popular Resistance, listen to this. We just learned that the FCC will not vote on taking net neutrality away in October, which means it will likely be on the agenda in November or December. This is the time of year when folks in Washington, D.C. do their dirty work because they think everyone is full of turkey or busy consuming for the holidays. Wow. What a fucking sick trick that is. So do you understand what's happening here? They were supposed to vote on this in October. And now they're pushing it off, and they're pushing it off to get less press for when they do it. Because, for the holidays. Wow. What a fucking sick trick that is. So do you understand what's happening here? They were supposed to vote on this in October. And now they're pushing it off, and they're pushing it off to get less press for when they do it. Because, they broke a record in the comments period for net neutrality. I think they got over 9 million comments, and almost all of them were against this garbage that the FCC is trying to do, which is to go. They broke a record in the comments period for net neutrality. I think they got over 9 million comments, and almost all of them were against this garbage that the FCC is trying to do, which is to gut net neutrality. And in fact, there was a story that we covered about how the comments that agreed with the FCC were fake. Many of them were fake because they were repeated, like the word for word. So they had to try to beef up the stats for the side for the thing that they're about to fucking do, where everybody else was like, go fuck yourself, don't gut net neutrality. And what you're going to have here is a fractionalizing of the internet, if/when they do this. And that makes it so that, some of the websites that you love the most might get their speed slowed down through your internet service provider because your internet service provider demanded a bribe from them to keep their speed up, and they refused to give it. So you're going to have an internet where, you might be able to access one site you like, but not another site you like, where right now it's equal everywhere. Everywhere you go, same speed on the internet. So the rules that Obama's FCC put in place said, no, we're going to regulate the internet like a public utility, and we're guaranteeing equal access to all the sites. Ajit Pai's coming in, and he's doing the bidding of the internet service providers because he's their little bitch boy, and he's making it so that they get to determine access, and they get to slow down speed to whatever websites they want to, and what that means is they'll demand a bribe from all the websites, and if the websites don't pay it, well, then you're going to get your access slowed down. By the way, this also crushes small business because, they can't afford to pay whatever the price is going to be to get their internet speed up. So you're just going to have giant multinational corporations are the only ones that will probably be able to afford the bribes, and they're the only ones that will have their speed up, and so that crushes small business, crushes competition. It's inherently anti-capitalist. So these guys are corporatists. Ajit Pai is a corporatist. That's what he is. And he's doing the bidding of the corporations at the expense of everybody else in the country and at the expense of you enjoying your fucking internet experience. So that's why the comments section broke records, is because people are so sick of his bullshit. And now we know they're trying to be even sneakier. They're trying to make it so that you don't even realize it when they do it. What? No, it's the holidays. What? Oh, you're sitting around with your family eating some turkey. Relax, man. It's all good. Anyway, we just fucked up the internet for the future, so it's cool. By the way, the whole Republican Party is in cahoots on this issue, and they're all dead wrong. So another thing they did, and we discussed this at length, is I think it was a bill that only 7% of Americans agreed with, but Republicans signed on to a piece of legislation that takes away your internet privacy protections. So in other words, now when you go to a website and they collect data on you, they're allowed to take that information, that company, and sell it to other third parties. That used to not be the case. You used to have to get your permission before somebody who took your information on the internet could then give it to other people. They used to have to ask for your permission. Now they don't. The Republicans all voted for your internet privacy rights going away. The Democrats all voted for you continuing to have your internet privacy rights. pirate party. This is a pirate party. There's no doubt about it. Mike over at the Humanist Report, or December, that giant. We just fucked up another thing they did, and we discussed that information. Republicans all voted for, doubt about it. Your internet privacy rights going away. The Democrats all voted for you continuing to have your internet privacy.